If the experience you're having is, please sir, can I have some more? And that's all you're hearing, it's a pretty reasonable proposition. But if the experience you're having is, you are absolutely helping to transform lives, you are absolutely doing something that's changing societal outcomes, my contention is that fatigue starts to shift to a far more uplifting and engaging experience that you probably don't want to stop. And that's what research is telling us as well. But our cost-based measurements are keeping us in the realm of, please sir, can I have some more? Because when we look at things in single unit nodes and say, oh, that's too expensive, we can't do that, and save some money there and don't spend that money, that's what we're consigning ourselves to. So every time we tout proudly our cost ratios are low, we're actually causing donor issues. Oh, no, not us. Yes, you, and you, and you are all responsible for this. So if your measurements actually take you there, you are causing that problem. Stop it. Stop. Tracy.
I've got two questions. So the first one is around the segmentation of the donor base and the different approach that you would have depending on how you segment. So without giving away Marta's IP, I'm sort of be interested in, so you're talking about there are all these personal contacts important, but it's not, I suppose I'd always thought that you should go for the, top 20 customers give most of the sort of money. So I'm interested in that segmentation and different approaches and having a relationship with lots of people who's personal. But the other quick one is I'm interested in this roundup. So certainly I ran the lifetime retail business at our marketing company. And every time I go to Myers or David Jones or whatever, the roundup coming off the back of the post is So how much money is being made out of the roundup? And is that making organisations more successful, or is it at the margins? So they're sort of totally different questions.
I'll answer the second first and come back to your first, Tracy. Look, I'm not overly fussed about getting involved in roundup programs. Nice if they do it, but it's money, it's cash. Now, this is going to sound really sniffy. Please let me explain. I'm interested in continuing relationships. As I invest in those relationships, that's where the real return is being made over time. So if you just give me cash, that's useful. I won't say no. But I actually prefer names and addresses and the opportunity to have a meaningful relationship. So yeah, depending how much time we would invest in that, it may or may not be useful.
That will be my view, but certainly there's a lot of pressure from areas within businesses about going down the roundup. I sort of had the view that was, a bit of the icing on the cake, that if you could have a relationship and buyers or DJs are going to support you this month, that's good.
It used to be a thing. I'm looking at guide dogs, is that right? From guide dogs? Yeah. Okay. So my dad used to guide dogs in SANT many years ago. And putting money into model dogs used to be the thing, but it was really the only thing. Back in the late 70s, we didn't have the ability to do electronic transfer of funds. So yeah, it's okay, but not today. I'm interested
still very popular.
And that's just, well, the dogs are, absolutely. No, I get it. No, believe me.
I get a good feeling from it. It's hard take up doing that.
Totally. So perhaps to answer that question, to come to your first question, no trade secrets here. Everyone does this, or should. We look at it in really three simple terms: mass, many, and few. Okay? So your mass is really your larger support base. For us, it's largely our lottery programmers and regular supporters. Okay? Low volume in terms of amounts, but large numbers, and that's your sustaining, bankable, predictable support base. You wouldn't be without them. For us, that actually not just enables us to have a broad base to do other things from, but it's what we really generate most of our funding into medical research from, and that's what we'll be paying Stephen with, and that's really important. Okay. Your many is maybe your large events like International Women's Day Fun Run and those sort of activities for us. And so even inside that, you've got your small core of rusted on supporters, some other fundraisers and participants. They're all important, but they all play a different role. And your few, your larger donorship requests, your corporate partnerships, those sorts of trust and foundations. A fundraising strategy is a connected strategy. So anyone that looks at your P&L and goes, oh, that one's a bit expensive, let's not do that, let's just focus on bequests. And then in 3 or 4 years you go, what's happened to our return? Where are all our bequesters gone?
They're still living.
and they're giving to someone else because someone else cared for them a lot. So again, all these parts work together, and there's no trade secrets about this, but I think we don't always think in this connected piece, which is why I use the analogy of making bricks, putting them together and building a house. That's a fundraising house. We don't teach that, and that's a part of a challenge. But certainly then it's difficult to even get that idea up, because I've heard this time and time again, I've experienced it, where we say, oh, let's cut out those really expensive programs and other ones that are sustaining programs. There's a group in the US, Board Source. I'm doing a workshop with Board Source early next year in Brisbane, years to come, talking about measurements and how we do this. And we have our own internal metrics we've created. We've plugged them into Board Source to look at dependency and cost base. And I think the coupling of that's the, I say it's a slight plug, but it's probably the best combination of metrics I've ever seen in the sector. Sure.
Nigel, you mentioned before about the number of NFPs that are being formed every day.
Yep.
Do you see that as a response to a number of different factors, or is it for you just fairly clearly that it's a response to public funding being cut on many different programs?
Look, I think it's a number of factors, to be honest. I think that, it's not, yes, that's a factor, but often it's a factor with an existing organisation rather than a new one. Often it's, I spot a need, I'm going to respond. We actually spent some time talking to a lot of folk in the community about, they might come to us, we want to help this, want to do that. We've deliberately chosen to put infrastructure around people who want to actually do something within our existing infrastructure. We've got some really successful models in that experience over time, but that costs money. So again, we'll also get criticised for spending too much money on relationships. No, that's true. It's a real thing. And maybe the longer I've been there, the older I get, the more I go, well, this is just not right. Sorry, I'm actually going to call this out. I'm not going to right. It's so it looks at a number of factors, but I think it really talks to this diffusion in market and perhaps the lack of clarity and the noise about, I want to respond, that's a great human thing. I want to do this, terrific, I'm not sure how to do it, so I'm just going to do whatever I see. And we sort of, at that point, start to drift off course. Yeah. It's hard.
Nigel, this is just a comment. Recently, one of the K firm partners who audits a number of not-for-profits had a visit from one of the clients from within the firm, and they wanted to set up a charity. And so by the time the partner went through all of the costs involved in setting up a charity, and they just felt that they could, gain some tax benefits from doing that, but then was able to point out that even if the business was able to donate, they would still get a tax deduction without having to set up a charity for the sake of doing that. And if we educate, like if our advisors, professional services, educated their client base that there are ways of actually, donating out of what you're making in order to still get a tax deduction without having to set up a charity and still be funded.
I think PAFs are a good example to that same theme. The growth of private ancillary funds has been very much driven from a tax perspective rather than a giving perspective. Yeah, sure. When you have conversations with donors that in the financial sector say, I've got to distribute all this money from my PAF, you'll do. Then that's not really what they're there for, I would argue. But you're right. I mean, it's not just the cost of setting it up, it's the cost of continuing to do business. And it's the scale through which you can actually affect any meaningful outcome that you, through that business that you do, is the thing to question. Hence the 83% with $1 million less turnover. That's why that figure is critical. So we think of all of this in a very singular and sort of in the moment. But most social problems are solved longitudinally. We're a funder of research. It takes 15 years to take an idea from sort of a research germination to clinical translation on average. So unless we have a 15-year funding model, we're not in the game. So that's a scout. Sorry, question?
Yeah, I'm going to take the question unless somebody else is.
No.
I'm not going to say that.
Keep it simple.
Jump in, but
I was just thinking about from a transactional perspective, and these days you can't go to a till at a retail store without them asking you, do you want to add 50 cents?
Yep.
Thank you again for Nigel. Wonderful insight into a very important subject matter. We're all trying to help. I'd just like to recognise Piper Alderman today for hosting us again. So Andrew Rankin, who's down the back. Thank you very much, Andrew. And even more so to Rebecca, who's on the other side, who's actually done all the work. So thank you, Rebecca. Great job. Thank you again. Please feel free to hang around and keep on talking. My goal is to do about 4 of these each year, and to have people like Nigel and leaders from the sector come and share their, I guess, experiences and real world scenarios in terms of what they're seeing, which will help us understand their positions when we get to speak with them about whatever we're engaged with from where we sit. So thank you again for your attendance today. Thanks to Nigel. Thanks to Piper Alderman. Keep an eye on the LinkedIn site for the group, where we try and post activities, and the website will be being rebuilt over the holidays, and in January you'll get an update of what we're trying to achieve to help this sector and help us engage with them. So thanks everybody.